Hi friends, welcome to this week's video from Karoleena's Cottage. This is Johnny, and this week I have some great things to show you about how to incorporate texture into your projects. My focus today is using air dry clay and molds to give more detail and texture to boring pieces. Air dry clay is a great way to define a particular style for your project, and you can be creative by mixing different molds in a design. It's also an inexpensive way to create decor. My first thrifted piece is pretty common for thrift store finds. I know from experience that this type of finish will bleed into chalk paint with a yellowish or a reddish tint, so I sprayed clear Rust-Oleum top coat over the entire piece. Then I used black chalk paint since I will be using a wet distressing technique later. This piece has a good design with its scrolled edges and trim. I want to give it even more depth and detail, so I will be adding cottage style roses and leaves using air dry clay and IOD molds. The outer framed edges on this piece will be a soft pink color, but I want 2 layers of distress showing underneath, so I'm painting an ivory color over the entire piece, and I will later add the pink layer to just the outer framed area. This is the point in the process where I will add air dry clay castings. Adding them at this point allows me to apply a coat of paint that will help protect the castings from drying too quickly, which would cause the outer surfaces of the clay to shrink and pull away from the surface. Painting the casting while it's wet also prevents some of the cracking that's typical with air dry clay. I'm dusting these molds with cornstarch before pressing the air dry clay into the mold. That helps the clay release from the molds, and especially with the smaller pieces. Now that I have all the castings on this piece, I'm going to apply 1 coat of chalk paint. I applied the second coat of ivory colored chalk paint to the center section, and now I can apply the pink color to the outer edges of the frame. The paint I'm using today is Rust-Oleum. The ivory color is chiffon cream, and the pink color is blush pink. I will have that listed in my description below. The stamp I'm using on this piece is a part of the Icy Paris set from Prima Redesign. I'm struggling with my voice a little bit today. I'm recovering from a cold that I've had over the weekend. The wet distressing here takes a little time since there are several coats of chalk paint to get through. I'm repositioning the wet wipe as the paint builds up in it and trying to keep it clean so it will distress through the layers of paint. I like the look of both the black and the ivory showing through. One more thing I'm doing to most of these pieces is to add more texture by adding a shabby fabric bow. This has unfinished edges and gives more interest with texture, muted color, and a little character. The next piece is a cute piece, and I'm glad that it's already painted black. I'm going to add a little air dry clay castings to it to give it more texture. I'll paint it that ivory colored chalk paint again to match the other pieces. I will distress it a little bit with a wet wipe and add a shabby bow. One thing that seems to help on round pieces is spraying a little water on the clay. The clay is stretched a little more because of the roundness of the piece, so adding a little moisture prevents some cracking. I will also paint this clay right away using a very gentle touch so I don't disturb the design, but this also helps prevent cracking as the clay is drying. I'm also using a Prima Redesign mold for this next piece, and I will list the name of these molds in the description below. I used 1 coat of chalk paint on this and then I distressed it. This next piece was a very simple makeover. It just needs a little texture from the air dry clay, so I will put some cottage roses on that and 2 coats of chalk paint. And when I get ready to paint this, I'm not going to try to take the plant out of the pot. I'm just going to use some painter's tape to pull the leaves out of the way so that I can just simply paint it and get it finished quickly. The next project is a nice size metal container that will be great for magazines or towels or other storage or as a plant container. What I especially like about this piece is the scalloped top edge and the shape. It will be easy to add a bit more interest by using air dry clay roses and leaves to the design. I'm using 2 different IOD molds for this piece. There's a sort of a cottage or shabby rose mold called Felicite, and I also have a separate leaf mold that I'm using here. I can't remember the name of it, but I will post it in the description below. I'm using sort of a stippling technique to get the paint in to the petals of these roses. I don't want to press too firmly because the design is delicate and I don't want to destroy that small detail, but I also need to get the paint down into the crevices there. For the next piece, I will not be adding air dry clay to this piece because it is so rustic. I will be cleaning and freshening up the color a little, but leaving this rustic texture. Now, I want to do 2 things. First, I want to show you a before and after of the pieces I've just done. And then I want to add a few more things with texture that I maybe didn't necessarily make in this video, but have made in a previous video or will give a how-to demonstration in a future video. So I'm going to put those things together in a few vignettes, and I want to show those things to you next. So first, the before and after. In these vignettes, I've added additional texture by incorporating woven cotton fabrics with raw edges and simple homemade pieces. The rustic fabric hearts are made by layering thin cotton quilt batting or other similar content between two pieces of woven cotton fabric and hand stitching them together. Cut the cotton quilt batting a little smaller than the size of your hearts. You could also use a hot glue gun to join the pieces together. I am almost ready to start making some videos showing Christmas decor that you can make out of simple, everyday, or inexpensive things. So I'm kind of putting some thought into that. I look forward to your comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.